So as some of you know, I recently launched a membership service called Flicks of the Week, where you're going to get a video like this one every single week for $1 a month. A bunch of you signed up, and there were a lot of issues. A lot of you got confused. The third-party host had these weird things, including the deletion of the first 300 signups overnight. Your memberships were just deleted without me knowing. It was a mess. So I had to kill it. Figure, why not upload the video so everyone can watch it here for free? If I get enough views on this one, I'll upload the second one next week. But I need comments and likes in order to make sure that this does get enough views. So if you do like it, click the like button. But hope you at least get some movie recommendations out of this bonus video. In this video, here are the streaming services I'm going to be recommending movies on and what time in the video they show up. That way you can skip over any of the ones that you're not that interested in. But if you know the show, you know I spend about a minute per movie, so it's pretty easy to skip in that respect as well. But let's go ahead and get started with the Netflix recommendations, starting with American Assassin. Now this one did pretty well in the theater back when it came out, which was just a couple of years ago. And in this, Michael Keaton plays sort of this assassin trainer, and he's grooming sort of this young batch of assassins, and that's kind of cool. But then there's some really great action sequences in there as well. And to me, the formula for this one kind of felt like your typical PG-13 action movie that all the teenagers go to see on Friday nights, but it's not. It's rated R, it's got a harder edge to it than I had expected, and it's pretty fun. In no way is this one that I had any desire to watch a second time, but I thoroughly enjoyed it the first time I watched it, and I was actually surprised at how much I liked it. One that I would imagine a lot of you have seen, but if you haven't, I cannot recommend it enough, is Legend, starring Tom Hardy and Tom Hardy. He plays these infamous gangster twins from England, and this is a period piece. It kind of takes place, I believe, in the 60s, and it might even go through a couple of decades, and this one worked really well. He plays two very different characters in these twin brothers, and obviously he kills it. And the movie's pretty beautiful. Like, it's not dark and gritty, kind of like older Guy Ritchie movies or anything like that. It's dark and it's brutal at times, but it's got this beautiful look to it, and then his two performances isn't the only thing good about the movie. It's just the main reason to watch, and then everything else works pretty well. So those are my Netflix picks for the week, but obviously if you're here watching it originally, you're from the main channel, and you know that I just gave a bunch of sci-fi picks as well, so hopefully you've got plenty to watch on Netflix. Let's go ahead and move on to Prime. Now, I can't get good footage off the internet of this movie because it is older and it's not very well known, so there's not like HD footage of it, but the movie itself looks much better than what I'm showing you. And Mulberry Street is directed by the same guy who did Stakeland, Cold in July, and In the Shadow of the Moon, and this was either his first or second. It's one of his first movies, and it's very low budget. And it's basically a zombie outbreak movie, but it's not zombies. I don't want to totally give away what happens, but it's weird and it's wild. This is one I'd recommend for people that love gory, gritty horror movies that are a little bit offbeat. This one's perfect for that. If you like more kind of straight down the middle, you know, you want to kind of meet expectations, this one is gonna weird you out. I know some of you are already like tuning out on that, and then others, your ears are pricking up and going, oh my God, I gotta see this movie. I really dug it, especially considering it's an early attempt from a director that I ultimately really love their work. And then this week I'm recommending a great crime flick from the 90s, The King of New York. This is one of my favorite Christopher Walken standalone movies. I know I just talked about The Dead Zone, that's another one. And the reason I say that is I love, like, my favorite Christopher Walken stuff is sort of like, not his cameos, but his little character actor roles that he does so well. But as far as him leading a movie, he plays this gangster, and again, it's 90s, Lawrence Fishburne's in it, and it's got a good look to it, it feels good, and it's a little bit slow, but you just sort of have to want to be in the environment of this movie. And if you're not into it, then I could see this one being kind of dry and not just great. But if you love the gangster genre and you love Walken and you like sort of the 90s thriller kind of vibe, because this does have that, then this is a great one to watch. If you don't like any of that stuff, there's not a whole lot in this movie for you. All right, Hulu's got some good movies going right now, and they have one of the weirdest movies I've seen in a long time, for a couple of reasons. And this is one that I was going to do a full review on. I may still do it. It may pop up on the main channel this weekend. I don't know. But Greener Grass got a lot of buzz in the sort of like Sundance Film Festival circuit last year. It came out in a limited release in October, and it's available on Hulu free right now. And I'll tell you, I accidentally paid to watch this movie because I just didn't realize they had just dropped it on Hulu, and I don't regret paying $5 to rent it at all. I'll also tell you, this is far and away not for everybody. It's so weird. If you like Tim and Eric stuff, this is a great one to watch because while it is satire and it's crazy and just wacky and cringy, it's got plenty of cringe in it, but it works better than anything I've ever seen sort of in this crazy satire genre. It's got like a David Lynch vibe at times. It's really colorful, but the metaphor of these two women sort of struggling to one-up each other in the suburbs, it just played out so well. I understood so many of the really weird, offbeat metaphors almost instantly, and the movie wasn't hitting me over the head with them. It felt very smart, but this movie was like right at my level of intelligence. Like I could tell what they were trying to say without having to overthink it, yet it felt really smart to me. I was very, very impressed with this movie. Keep in mind, while I am recommending it, this is a special recommendation. This is not recommended for everybody, so pay close attention to how weird I just described this movie as, because it's only for a select group, but that group is probably going to love it. And then The Art of Self-Defense is on Hulu as well. This is one of my favorite movies of 2019. I really enjoyed this one. This one's about a karate dojo. It might have been taekwondo, but Jesse Eisenberg plays this guy who's the victim of an assault and wants to learn how to defend himself, and then starts to learn that there's these very sort of nefarious practices going on at this dojo. And I actually have a special relationship with this movie. I know one of the main actors, Philip Andre Botello. He was on a movie set where I did some behind the scenes work last year, which maybe you'll get to see eventually. He's a really great guy. He was on the podcast once, but The Art of Self-Defense has got a little bit of like a Wes Anderson vibe to it, a little bit of Coen Brothers, but it's got its own kind of unique flavor. It's very offbeat, but funny. And it is a dark comedy, don't get me wrong. You're not going to be slapping your knees in this one, but it made me chuckle, and it's pretty thought-provoking as well. It had a good story, I felt like, and some good performances. So if that sounds like you, definitely give this one a shot. It's a good flick. All right, moving on to the movie channels. HBO has John Wick 3 right now. So I have some other HBO recommendations that are a little bit more like hidden gems that'll be coming in the upcoming weeks, but they just added John Wick 3, and it's a great opportunity for me to talk about it. So when I saw this in the theater, I liked it. I had a good time watching it, and it wasn't till days after where I really started to realize how much better it is than the other John Wick movies. Now, the first one's great because it was the first one, and it was just fresh and new, and that was exciting. 3 really did something special with action, kind of at the Mad Max Fury Road level. They almost did too much. Some of the action sequences in this movie are too long. And that is a hell of a negative thing to say about a movie. I mean, they really went for it and drug out some of these action sequences. And they're not just mindless action. Like, they're really well choreographed. And there's a lot going on. And they're really telling you a story with these fight sequences. And I absolutely love it. I've watched 3 more than any of the others. It's one of my favorite action movies now. And one of my favorite movies of 2019. If you haven't seen it yet, I cannot recommend it enough. Strap in, because it is really intense. So Brightburn is on Starz right now, and this is going to sound like mild spoilers, but it's not anything that they didn't give away in the marketing for this movie. This is basically a horror movie that is like a alternate version of Superman. And the cool thing about it is it's not related to DC. James Gunn, who is most famous for the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but did some other crazy movies that I really liked before that. He took this idea to DC and said, hey, do you mind if we do this? And they said, okay. And I think that's super cool. So there's no affiliation with Superman or DC Comics, yet it's clearly like it's fan fiction based on Superman. But if Superman like uses powers for evil. It's cool. They do things with the blanket and all the mythology of Superman is there. And it just, I don't know, it played out really well. I was very impressed with it. It's not a huge epic movie like a Superman movie would be, but it's still really impressive for like a horror movie, and I just love the creativity, and then it's well executed. CINEMAX has Commando right now. This is one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies, or I guess one of my favorite lesser Schwarzenegger movies. Obviously like Terminator 2, Predator, the big ones I put above Commando, but for sort of like the lesser known and lesser loved ones, Commando is up there for a bunch of reasons. One, it's just cheesy. It's entertainingly cheesy. I'll put it that way. There's some bad effects, and not just bad effects, like there's a moment where he flips over a yellow Porsche and it's all scratched up, and then as it drives away, there's not a scratch on that Porsche. And it's very obvious, like you'll pick it up the first time you watch the movie. There's constantly like steel drum music in the background that never seems to get annoying, but you'll find it funny as to how, like, the whole score is done with steel drums. And then the final battle sequence is just testosterone unplugged. I think the kill count gets near 100. I did a drinking game to this once, which I do not advise. I'm not condoning that. It's a dangerous one if you drink every time somebody dies, especially in the last like 30 minutes of this movie. It's wild. And to be clear, it was sips of beer. It wasn't like shots or anything. I would have died. But it's just crazy amounts of fun. Blood, bullets, and muscles, and it's awesome. All right, in my notes, this show's a little more informal than the main one. I've got Showtime and Shudder. I don't have picks for those this week, but I will. And I'll also want you in the comments to sort of let me know, is there other services you want recommendations on? And I don't leave yet. I've got plenty more recommendations coming up. But are there other that you want recommendations for, or do you want me to maybe cut some of these? If I kind of notice I should maybe get rid of some of them, I'll happily get rid of, like if no one has CINEMAX, we can get rid of it. The only reason I have it is because they do have some great action movies like all the time. And I want to recommend stuff on Disney Plus. For the most part, you're going to be aware of everything on Disney Plus. It's all the classics and all that stuff. But there are some hidden gems on there that are hard to find. The way that their menu structure works, they try to kind of recommend the more popular stuff, but you really have to know that some stuff's there and to search for it. One of them being Iron Will. So this is a great movie. I loved this one as a kid. It's about a dog sled race. It's got a very Jack London vibe to it, and it's just really well done. It's really well put together, good storytelling. The dog racing and stuff is great. Now, it is from the 90s. It's got some years on it, and the only reason I point that out is because I'm recommending to watch it with kids. Now, it's going to be a little intense for very young children because there's some violence with some of the dogs. I think the dogs, like, turn on one of their owners at some point. Nothing graphic, but still, you're gonna have to explain some stuff to very little kids. But older kids, it's got a great story about just like perseverance, and it's good stuff. If you've never seen it, it's a great movie that's just buried on Disney Plus right now. Tubi, if you don't know, is a free app. It's on most streaming devices. You can just download the app. It's free. The services are free. This is not a paid endorsement or anything. I like it. I tested it out. I've tried a few of these free ones, and Tubi seemed to be the most reasonable with the ads. They run an ad before the movie starts. I think they might put a couple in the middle, but they're very spread out, if so, and sometimes there aren't any. So I recommend it. It's one of the better ones that have ads. And right now they have Battle Royale on there. If you've never seen Battle Royale, think the Hunger Games, but if there were guns and blood and real violence. So no knock against the Hunger Games, but they were PG-13. They were done for a teen audience. This is a very hard R, if not an NC-17 rating, with the same concept, and it came out way before the Hunger Games. And it is foreign language. You are gonna have to read subtitles, but it is a cool flick. If you wanna watch like just a massacre, like a bloody massacre that's also kind of fun and just crazy, like it's school kids, they're in school uniforms and they have to do this like crazy battle on an island with one survivor. It's wild. If you like the way I'm talking about it, you're gonna love the movie. If you're not remotely interested in it, just stay away from it, because I'm describing it perfectly. Okay, and then my rental pick of the week is Jojo Rabbit. Now, this is one that I missed, and I'll talk a little bit more about why at the end of this video, but I'm looking forward. It's available to rent as of this week. If you're gonna rent anything that just dropped this week, it's my top pick. It's directed by Taika Waititi. I always have trouble saying his name, but he's from New Zealand and he's most famous for What We Do in the Shadows. He directed Thor Ragnarok. Really great director, and this is supposed to be a fantastic movie. And it's based on a famous book where this little boy is in the Hitler Youth and he has an imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend is Hitler. And it's a comedy, but it's about this boy sort of realizing what he's involved in. And it's supposed to be really fantastic. Sam Rockwell is supposedly great in it. Scarlett Johansson has a role in it. And it looks beautiful. It got nominated for Best Picture, so I'm going to be checking it out this week. And then every week I'm going to tell you what's coming to the theater, what I know about them, and what you may want to go check out. I will not have necessarily seen them by the time the video comes out, but The Call of the Wild is the only real thing getting added this week. This is Harrison Ford and a CGI dog. It looks like it's probably pretty good, but I don't really have any interest in seeing it. And then there's another one called Greed with Steve Coogan that looks funny. These are both ones that I'll be waiting to rent at the very earliest, but there are some theater picks coming up soon that I'm very excited to see and excited to tell you about, so stay tuned to future episodes. And then for those of you that used to watch the Flicks of the Week, you know I also did a Show of the Week. It's something I don't do on the main channel. I'll get more on that at the end of this video, but I'm late to the party. But let me go ahead and get The Witcher out of the way. This is one of my favorite shows that Netflix has added in recent months. I think it's really well done, especially for a first season. To me, it has potential to go in Game of Thrones territory because there's so much going on with the mythology in the Witcher series. There are more monsters and stuff like that. And I also love this sort of like episodic nature of it. There are through lines that you have to keep following, but each episode is sort of a different adventure. And that's because this first season is actually based on the first book, which is a collection of short stories. But they went on to do, I believe, 5 books, a series of video games, one of which I played and really enjoyed. So it's just a very rich world. And I was actually surprised at how well the Netflix series captured the feel of it, or at least the feel that I'm most familiar with. It deals with some heavy themes without being overly heavy-handed with them as well. I kind of dig everything about it at the moment, and I realize a lot of you have probably already seen it, but at least here you get my thoughts on it, and then coming up, the Show of the Week will be more like recommendations that maybe you haven't seen. And then my short of the week is actually a short for Greener Grass. It's on Vimeo, it's not on YouTube, but this is how the project got funded. It doesn't look as good as the movie looks, and it's a little bit looser and just kind of wackier. It doesn't work as well as the movie, but still, check out the short. If you don't like the short, there's a very good chance you're not gonna like the movie. Or if you've already seen the movie, it's interesting to see the short because you can see kind of where they started and how they improved upon that original idea. I found it interesting watching the short after. But that's it for this video. I had fun making it. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes of the Flicks of the Week, and thanks again for becoming a member, especially one of the first members of the Flicks of the Week.